One thing that I really love about you, Ellen, is just how innovative you are in marketing yourself, your business. You aren't afraid to try new things. You take risks. You are constantly paying attention to, what's happening on different platforms. And so I'm really curious, is that something that comes naturally to you? Is that something you've had to learn as a business owner? And any tips you have for us in just being so innovative ourselves when it comes to marketing our independent businesses?
Well, thank you for that huge compliment, Nat. I think, honestly, I think it's something that has always come naturally to me, mostly because I'm a very curious person. I think curiosity is one of the most underrated strengths that you can have as an entrepreneur. So it's not that I know everything or I'm this genius or, that just everything comes easy to me. It really is because I'm willing to get curious and ask a lot of questions, and therefore in conversation with people, ideas spark. And so I think that's the key to creativity, is actually collaboration. And so even, for example, when we're talking about, let's say, partnerships, especially between brands, is a huge part of our business model as a media company. So we have to talk to brands all day long and really understand what are their goals for this year. What initiatives are they working on? What incentives can we align on? And that requires a lot of curiosity. It requires a lot of question asking and thinking about, okay, so this is your goal over here and this is our goal over here. How do we meet in the middle? How do we find fun ways, creative ways, unique ways to pour both of our resources and our communities together in order to achieve one shared common mission? So, we've had the pleasure of working with HoneyBook before as a partner, and it's so much fun. I think if you treat business like a game and you don't think inside this rule book of, okay, it's always been done XYZ way, therefore I need to follow this formula, but instead you look at it like, okay, if I roll this dice and move my character over here and color this a different thing, what could happen? And just staying very open to those possibilities is such a game changer.
When I hear you say that, I hear and am reminded of the fact that when we experience immense amount of pressure in business, when we feel the weight of that pressure on us, it increases a lot of the stress hormones in our bodies, cortisol, for instance. And that actually makes our brains more rigid. It actually inhibits us from kind of having that plasticity that allows us to think beyond the bounds of what we know. I think of it a lot like a GPS. Like, it's kind of saying, when we feel that pressure, we feel like we have to zero in and go from point A to point B. And there's no room for detours, no room for exploration, innovation, adapting, none of that. But what I'm hearing you say is, instead of feeling that pressure, you've had this mindset of curiosity and play. And that curiosity and play, what it actually does to the brain is it increases levels of cannabinoids and opioids that are endogenous to our bodies, right? Like that aren't from the outside. We're not talking about drugs here, friends. We're talking about actual hormones you already have inside of you. It increases levels of those sorts of things. And what it does is it actually makes your brain more plastic. It enables you to see possibilities that you wouldn't have seen before, to put yourself in positions that maybe you wouldn't have put yourself in before. We'll link to some really cool science on play in the show notes if that's something you're interested in. And I know the Huberman podcast has an amazing episode on this. Highly recommend listening to as well. The point being, I'm hearing that level of play and curiosity kind of abound in your overall approach to business and life. And you can see how that has played out in your ability to grow, in a multitude of ways. Now, leaning into that growth that you've experienced, you've gone from just being, a team of one, your own boss. And that, as we all know, is hard enough. That is a challenge as a solopreneur. If that's the position you're in, that is hard. But you've expanded your team. You've grown and brought on employees. I want to talk a little bit about that. One, when did you know it was time to hire? And two, what have you learned as a leader in that experience of going from just leading yourself, which again, we know is hard, to leading a team?
Oh my goodness, we could talk for hours about this, and I'm still very much in the trenches learning as a leader on this particular topic. I think it's actually my weakest area as a business owner, in terms of my own skill set and aptitude for, that part, like friendship, connection comes really easy to me. Management does not come easy to me. It is like not something that I enjoy or that I thrive in. So I would say my first hire, actually, so my first year in business, 2018, completely solo. I did all the projects, all the things, wore all the hats. In 2019, my second year of business, I hired a part-time contractor to start helping me with some of our client accounts. At the time, our business model was still a boutique marketing agency. So we were doing done-for-you social media management for a multitude of clients. And so I brought her on to help with, small things at first. I think actually her first project was literally putting together like a kind of like a capstone report for this influencer marketing campaign we had run for a client. And then it kind of delved into, okay, could you help with hashtags here? Could you populate some captions here? And it just kind of snowballed, And actually by that summer of 2019, she had, really taken on a lot in that business, and then soon after became my first full-time employee. And then it's funny looking back because, my business, although we're more than 5 years now in the grand scheme of business, we're still very much a baby, right? When you look at legacy businesses that have been around for generations. But it's really one thing that I hold very dear is that very first employee eventually went on to create and start her own business, but she still is part of our team to this day in a different role. Her role has changed many times. She's now a community manager in one of our programs. But the fact that we've kept that relationship so strong over the years and have been able to adapt to each other's changing lives and changing businesses, I think speaks volume to the privilege that we have as independent business owners to not do business the expected or corporate way, to not have to, completely cut ties with someone because their ambitions may change or whatever it may be. So we have that adaptability as independent business owners that I think we really, really need to lean into. So anyways, from that point, fast forward to this day, I have 2 full-time employees and a few amazing contractors that I work with on a regular basis to help produce all of the content that we put out on Cubicle to CEO, to help with client work. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in leadership and hiring is when you are starting out as an independent business owner, as a solopreneur, everything in your mind, speaking of questions, everything that you come across, your natural question is, how do I do this? Or what do I need to do, right? You're asking a lot of how and what questions. The more you evolve as a leader, the more you have to train your brain to not ask so much how and what, but instead who. Who would be the best fit for this? Who could lead this project? Who could, whatever it may be, right? And that's a totally different approach. It's a totally different mindset, and it is a transition, especially when you're used to doing everything yourself. And so I've really had to learn that, and I've really had to learn how to allow people to make mistakes and to figure it out on their own in the same way that we had to figure it out on our own, because you can be there as a guide and a mentor and a support, but it does not mean that you have to treat, your employees really any different than how you treat a business. You can allow them that same room for safe play and for failure and for all those things, because that's how they're going to learn as well.